Alright, so finally have the car up in the air. Just going to give you a quick tour underneath what it looks like. While I have it in the air, it's going to do a brake fluid flush along with the clutch as well. Something that needs to be done. Hasn't been done in quite a long time, I'm sure. But here we go. While it's also in the air, also going to clean up these rear wheels as well. I've only done the front so far. Also had a chance to finally put this strip back on, ordered some new clips underneath, and plop that back in. So underneath the car, here we are in the rear. Just not leaking, but there definitely has been a little bit of sweating over the years. Nothing to be concerned about. Shaking the wheels in the rear and up and down, everything's pretty tight. You're gonna have to take my word for it. Unfortunately, I only got one hand. And moving up to the transmission here. A little bit of weepage as well, but nothing big enough to make a drip, which is good. A little bit of sweating on the oil pan too, nothing crazy. Control arm bushings are in good shape. Underneath here, it's actually not too bad. I gave all these guys a quick shake and up and down, and they're all nice and tight as well. It's not too shabby. But coming into the front, where this thing was literally hit every parking block probably in the town, you know, everything's loose. It's gonna have to be clicked. Oh, this side can be clicked back in. This side's been broken. Looks like it's been rubbing for quite some time. You got a bit of a little bit of melted plastic from the tire, looks like. Gonna have to get that all zip tied back together. Front bumper is obviously dragging a bit. Not sure what I'm gonna do about that. Maybe get some new push pins and try to push them back up again. Not sure if I'm gonna plastic weld this bumper up. But yeah, just in the front. Here's a closer look of what the bumper looks like. Not in the greatest shape, but you know, from 10 feet it'll look okay. This one here, broken fog light. Headlights super foggy. Hopefully get those polished up soon. Oh yeah, got some $20 Chinese grills put in place. Need a little clearancing back here just so you're able to open up the the hood latch. But other than that, they're actually not bad for the cost. They were certainly smarting up the car. And I got the rocker panel trim here back in place. The one from the wrecker. Anyway, I was going to change out the front rotors. Since this car's been sitting for a while, there's just a lot of corrosion on these things when you're at high speeds and you hit the brakes. I've tried to drive this around for a little while and get it to wear away, but there's just so much pulsation. Thankfully, I was able to buy some super cheap rotors on closeout from Rock Auto. I've never heard a pro stop in my life, but these were 15 bucks a rotor, so couldn't pass up that deal. Just getting started on the brake fluid and clutch bleed. So two things I have is some .4 brake fluid. I'm by myself, so I'm using my Motive power bleeder, and I also have one of these bleeder bottles. If you don't want to buy one of these, you can always grab just like a pop bottle and get a tube and put a little bit of brake fluid in the bottom. That way if you forget and let's say this thing loses pressure, you're not going to suck air back up into the system. When you pressurize these things, especially if you haven't used them in a couple of years, always double check your hoses. Unfortunately, last time I used this thing, I didn't realize it had cracks all up and down it. Went to pressurize it and the thing just sprayed everywhere, and I had to rip the car outside as fast as I could just to wash it off, because as you guys know, brake fluid is super corrosive. And you want to be really careful with stuff, especially around paint. Working on the first caliper here. I'm doing this kind of backwards. I'm doing the one closest to the master, and this because this is so contaminated and the system is not being bled in its entirety in a sense because there's no air in the system. So I'm going closest to the master so I don't run all the shitty fluid through the entire system, so I get clean fluid going through the majority of it. So I'm going closest to, and this is just absolutely filthy. This is supposed to be a nice clear yellow. This is super dark amber. The goal here is, while you're bleeding the system of all the old fluid, you want to wait till this goes somewhat clear and you don't see any more chunks or any sort of sediment in there. And this is starting to get pretty decent here now. It could get a bit clearer, but this is a heck of a lot better than it was. I'm already about half my bottle through, so I'm going to shut her down and on to the next one. Got the $15 rotors installed. They actually look not too bad. Have to see how they perform when I take it out and bed the pads in a little bit. It's got to be better than before. There's just so much pulsation from it sitting for so long. So looking at the old rotors, here's where the pulsation's coming from. So the pad's sat here for quite some time with water on it, and they just sort of froze in place. But as you can see, it's kind of getting a hot spot. Same with here too. The driver's side here looks pretty smooth, but the passenger, this is where all the issues were happening. On the inboard side looks not too bad, but the outboard, I mean, I could have got these resurfaced potentially, but for $15 buying new rotors, roll the dice and see how it does. Just a look underneath the car with the belly pan, splash pan off. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of an oil pan leak, but I'm not going to be addressing that. It's not crazy enough to be leaking down onto the splash shield here, just in the back. But it's nothing crazy actually. I know it looks worse than it is. Up top though, it's also a bit of valve cover gasket leak here too. Gonna address that in a later video. This AC belt looks fairly decent. I'm gonna be leaving that one alone, but gonna take it off to replace the accessory belt. As you can see, this one's seen way better days, but I have another one that was a takeoff of my wife's car. She drives an E46 as well, that I'm just going to throw on this one that's in way better shape. Going to check the pulleys as well, but got to pull the fan and to take everything off first before I do that. So for episode 4, this is our ongoing tally. I have a couple things in here that I did not include in the video, but I did point out just because I thought they were kind of boring and just not really that fun to film. It was just pushing in clips. So for this one, we have rotors and grills. They were $117, and the shipping costs almost as much as the parts. Brake fluid, $18. The door trim, it was free in the car, but I had to purchase $7 in clips. The rocker panel trim from the wrecker, along with some clips, was $175. It was missing both front jack pads, as I'm pretty sure they were taken out by a speed bump, but those were $35. I was getting tired of boosting it all the time, so I threw in a new battery, also gave it an oil change, and that was $290. So in addition to our previous episodes of $27.24, added $642, and our grand total now is $33.66. If you wish to see more content on this, please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.